Welcome to the How to Practice Efficiently portion of the drumming system. Well, why do we practice? Why do we need to practice? Well, let's start off by taking a look at some of the world's greatest athletes. Athletes like Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. Now, we all know these names because they are the greatest athletes on the planet. Even though they may have had some natural ability at a younger age, they still had to practice to get as good as they were. Now, it's no different for musicians. You might look up to a drummer or a guitar player or bass player, piano player, whoever. They have to practice all the time to better themselves. And maybe sometimes it's not a chore, but more of a way of life. For me, practicing was a part of my job. I enjoyed it. I'm not the kind of person that does things that make me feel uncomfortable or put pressure on me. There's enough pressure in life as it is. We don't need to put pressure on ourselves as we play the drums. So maybe someone like you and me that don't have tons and tons of natural talent might have to put a little more effort into what we do. But that's okay because the end results are amazing. So you have to decide what's important to you. What do you want to improve in? What do you want to make sound better on the drum set? Well, we have a whole bunch of different options that I can show you as far as maybe helping you develop a practice schedule of your own. A lot of times it depends on how much time in a day or a week or a month that you have to practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to narrow it down a little bit into some areas that maybe you're going to go, hey, I want to get better at this because I've already practiced this section, or maybe I have no interest in practicing this. It's completely up to you. You must prioritize what you want to get better at. And keep in mind, the more you practice, the better you're going to become, and you're going to be a much more well-rounded drummer. Let me share with you some tips on how to practice. Now, I've heard this time and time again from many great teachers, and I've even heard Thomas Lang talk about this. Now, this is a man who definitely practices. Have you ever seen him play? Don't play when you practice. Don't practice when you play. Well, what does that mean? Well, if I go to my practice room to work on something new, I don't just pick up my sticks and start playing and just hitting stuff and jamming along, because that's playing. That's good to do, but when you're actually going to practice, set some sort of a schedule and say, look, I'm going to spend 10 minutes on this and another 10 minutes on that, or whatever. But the main thing is, to me, practicing isn't just going down to the basement and wailing on the drums. Now, don't practice when you play. Now, what that means is you get on the bandstand with your band, or you get into the recording studio, some sort of situation like that, and maybe you haven't quite got something down yet because you haven't practiced it enough. But yet you're thinking, I really like that idea that I saw, Steve Gadd play once, and I want to try to do that. But you never really practiced it. And you try to pull it off on stage, and it totally doesn't work. So that's what that means by don't practice when you play. Make sure that what you play, you can already play. I hope you understand that. So that's a big one. The main thing is when you're in the practice room, try to stay focused. Practicing is a solo art, meaning it's just you. So it can be a little lonely at times, but we understand that. Make the most of that. When there's a crowd watching you play, if you're in the studio and there's an engineer and people standing around watching you record, make sure that you're ready to do what you have to do. Another great tip is to practice in front of a mirror. Now, it's not so you can check yourself out. It's basically so you can check your posture. You don't want to be hunched over when you're practicing, especially if you're working on something that's difficult or maybe something that you're not totally interested in. Our tendency could be kind of like, I don't want to work on this. Watch that, so you can check out and make sure you can see yourself in the mirror. I usually put it to the side of me so I can look and see if everything is lining up. You can also make sure your hand technique is proper. You're also going to notice that your drum set will be set up properly. If you look to the side of the mirror and you see that drums are too high or too low, and maybe you're reaching, or maybe things are too high, these are also going to help you, which is really great. It's just going to make your practicing that much easier in the long run. So posture, hand technique, seat height, where your feet are on the pedals. This all has a big role in what we do when we practice the drums. Now, when you go to the practice room and you want to work on something that maybe you heard that's very, very cool and exciting to play, make sure that you stay focused on that. If you want to make that a part of your playing, you definitely have to stay focused. Don't let your mind wander and go, okay, now I'm going to work on this other lick that I already got mastered, 5 weeks ago. Just stay focused. If it's not coming to you, say you're working on something and your brain is just melting that day and you go, I just can't get this. Put it away. Come back a few days later. The last thing you want to do is end up frustrating yourself on this instrument. As a youngster, I did that many, many times where I would get angry and I would throw things and knock things over. And that's not good for anybody. You're going to wreck things. You're going to damage things. One funny story was I was working on something that I had to do for my teacher. And what I used to do to kind of count to 10, being a 17-year-old at the time, is I'd throw my drumstick. And basically what would happen is I'd have to get up and get it and count to 10 and come back and work on it. And so I'd always throw the stick and I'd hear it hit the back wall and then I'd go find it and I'd come back and I'd be like, okay. So one day I'm practicing something and I throw the stick and I didn't hear it hit the ground. And so I'm walking around and I thought, that's kind of weird. Usually I hear it hit the ground. We had a concrete floor in the basement there. And I went over, I'm looking around for it, and all of a sudden something poked me in the shoulder, and it was the drumstick. It actually stuck into the drywall. Well, needless to say, I put a poster up over it so my folks wouldn't see it. And sure enough, my mom comes downstairs and says, what's this poster doing here? I don't want anything on this wall. Takes the poster off, and there's a big hole in the wall from my drumstick. So lesson 1, don't get angry. If it's not working, come back to it a day or two later. It might become that much easier. So with that in mind, you always want to end on a positive note. Basically, when you practice something over and over and over, it's going to sound better and better every day. It's definitely going to sound better than it did yesterday or the day before or the last time you practiced it. So the main thing to do is to make sure that when you're not in the mood to practice, is maybe just don't practice that day. There's nothing saying you have to practice every single day. I personally don't. You might hear a lot of drummers do a lot of great things on the drumming system here. Maybe you hear some really cool things that I've played. These are things that I have practiced a lot because they're very, very important to me. Now, I also have future practice priorities, meaning that I have a lot of things that I want to start working on in the near future that maybe I can't do very well right now. I consider myself a student of the drum, and I'm always going to learn until I'm physically incapable of playing the drums, which hopefully won't be for another 50 or 60 years. But the main thing is, every time I come back to the drum set, I want to start on a positive note and end on a positive note. In order to begin structuring your practice routine, you must set some realistic goals. Now, a perfect example would be someone who signs up for a gym membership. Of course, it's always in the new year, the New Year's resolution. They spend all this money on a gym membership, they buy a bunch of gym clothes and backpacks and water bottles, spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Go for the first couple of months and realize that, oh man, the expectations that I'm setting for myself are far too high, and they end up quitting. I see that a lot. I used to work at a gym back in the 90s. The same can kind of go for a drum set. You invest money in lessons or in a drum set, fancy cymbals, nice stools, double bass pedals. All of a sudden you're expecting yourself to get really good in a short period of time. No difference in the person going to the gym that might want to lose 30 pounds or someone who might want to become a semi-professional bodybuilder. You have to set the realistic goal and try to achieve that. So if your goals are to just play in a band and have some fun, well, maybe you shouldn't work on trying to play single stroke roll with one hand at 400 beats per minute. I mean, that's a good thing to have, but you're not setting your own goals. You have to realize, look to the distant future and say, okay, this is what I want to be doing by the end of 6 months. I always check with my students and say, what are your realistic musical goals? And they look at me funny and I say, well, for example, what do you want to see yourself doing in 6 months? 6 months goes by fast, especially when you're sitting down behind the drums and practicing. A lot of times the student will say, well, I don't know, I want to be able to play a whole bunch of beats and fills and play a bunch of different styles and maybe join a band. To me, that's a very realistic goal. If they say, well, I want to go on world tour doing drum clinics and, hanging out with Thomas Lang, well, that's a little more unrealistic if they've just been playing drums for 6 months. So you see what I'm saying? Is try to set something realistic, because you can always reset your goals later on. So with that in mind, you have to decide, what do you want to get better at? Now, on the other side of the coin, there was a student that I had when I was teaching in LA a few years ago. And we were doing an evaluation with all the different, there was a couple of different teachers. We were doing an evaluation. There was like 5 or 6 drum students at this drum camp we were doing. And we were asking guys if they could play basic grooves, like rock grooves, shuffles, bossa nova, a funk groove, some sort of a swing groove, play with brushes. And I always ask at the end, is there anybody here who plays double bass? And only one hand went up. So this guy said, well, come on over to the drum set and let me see you play something with double bass. And he sat down and went, it was so fast, it just sounded just like a bee flying by. It was incredible. The kid's like 15 years old. And so everybody, all the drum students are like, whoa, that's amazing. I said, but he was just playing with his feet. That was it. His hands were just kind of dangling down by his arms. I said to him, well, can you play a groove with that? And he said, no. I said, well, can you slow that down? He said, no. So I thought, wow, this is going to be a challenge teaching this guy, because this is all this guy could do. He had amazingly fast feet, but that was all he had. Now, in reality, there are no bands that will hire him, because that's all he could do. He could not play a beat. All he did was spend time on double bass. So my job that week was to try to get him to start slowing that down and start incorporating some time on the cymbal, on the snare, with these amazing feet. Now, I hope that he practiced this. I haven't seen him in years, but I hope that he's worked on this, because he'd be one of the fastest drummers on the planet. So, with that in mind as well, you also want to make sure that you have something in mind to practice. So what we're going to do is we have something called the practice routine generator, which is going to help give you some ideas of some things to start practicing. This will make your life easier and your practice routine a lot more fun. In the drumming system, we have something to help you with your practice. This is called the practice routine generator. We've broken it up into 3 different topics: musical drumming, technical drumming, and building your library. Let's take a look at musical drumming. Now, musical drumming, we'll start with play-along songs. Now, we have a ton of play-along songs for you to start practicing to. You can jam along with some friends. Invite some friends over, start playing. You can play drum solos. Start playing some drum solos. You could learn a new favorite song, or you can just work on improving groove. Those are some great topics to start practicing. In the technical drumming section, we have drum theory, drum rudiments, hand technique, pedal technique, and building speed. In building your library, we have heavy rock beats, mixed rock beats, groove rock beats, Latin and jazz beats, and playing drum fills. So this kind of sums up all the different things that you can practice in the practice routine generator. All of these topics are discussed throughout the drumming system. You see a lot of examples of these. So let's take a look at various practice schedules. Let's take a look at the casual schedule. The casual schedule is 20 minutes a day. Now hopefully you can find 20 minutes a day to practice the drums. Now, even if you only practice 6 days a week and take 1 day off, that's fine. If you want to practice 7 days a week, go for it. So what I would suggest in the casual practice schedule is pick one topic from the first category, musical drumming, and practice one of those for 20 minutes. The next day, maybe go to the technical drumming topic and choose one of those categories. Practice that for 20 minutes. Then on the third day, go to the building your library section, choose one of those categories, and practice that. So once you've completed going through those topics, you can go back to the first topic, musical drumming, and choose another one. If you feel that maybe you didn't quite master the one you were working on, you can continue working on that one, or you can move on to another. You can just go down the list, or you can randomly choose some. It's completely up to you. And if you're the kind of person that has a hard time making a decision, I would simply say, write all these things on a piece of paper, throw them into a hat, pick one out. That's the one you practice. It's as easy as that. Over time, you're going to have covered all of these. Basically, once you have that down, you have a nice practice schedule that doesn't take up a lot of your day. It's going to start making you a better drummer. I want to talk about the motivated schedule. Now what this is 40 minutes of practice a day. Now, I'm not saying that the 20-minute casual schedule wasn't motivated. This is just for someone who has a little bit more time to spend behind the drums. Now, when you have 40 minutes a day to practice, I have a couple of suggestions. You could take topic A, musical drumming. Pick one of the categories, practice that for 20 minutes, and then another one from the same category and practice it for another 20 minutes. There's 40 minutes right there. On day 2, you can go to technical drumming and pick one topic, practice that for 20 minutes. Pick another one, practice that for another 20 minutes. Once again, there's 40 minutes. On day 3, go to the building your library topic, pick one, you guessed it, 20 minutes. Pick another 20 minutes. You'll be amazed at how fast 40 minutes goes by sometimes. You can also mix it up. So maybe you've done that for a while, where for maybe a month or two you've practiced what I just suggested. Then maybe you can completely mix it up. There's no real rules or laws. One thing I wouldn't suggest, though, is don't just stay on one topic every single day. Really try to mix it up, because maybe you're having more fun with the play-alongs than you are with the rudiments. Well, it's very important to do all, because you want to be able to play along with music, but you also want to have good hand technique and good rudimental ability. So the choice is yours. Mix it up. If you can play all of these things the same level, it's going to make you that much of a better drummer. Let's take a look at the dedicated schedule. Now this one is 60 minutes per day. Hopefully at least 6 days a week. If you can do 7, great. Now 60 minutes a day might seem like a lot for some people. In my opinion, it's really not, but this would be great for someone who really wants to get good at the drums. Now, if you feel that 20 minutes is enough or 40 minutes is enough, maybe this isn't the one for you, maybe you'll come back to this schedule later on. Well, if you're going to practice 60 minutes a day, I wouldn't suggest just working on a single stroke roll, because that could get a little boring, and you'll obviously have an amazing single stroke roll, but some other stuff will get hindered in there as well. So what you could do is take one topic from each category and practice 20 minutes on each one, which will total 60 minutes. After that, you can mix it up once again. Maybe you can choose 3 categories from one topic and do each one for 20 minutes. Then on day 2, move to the technical drumming, 20 minutes on 3 different categories of technical drumming, and then go to on day 3 to building your library and choose 3 of those and practice those for 20 minutes. So the whole idea is to try to fill up 1 hour of your day of serious, good, dedicated practice. Now after doing this for a while, you might notice that some things are becoming easier or you're getting better at certain areas, but there's still some areas that tend to maybe suffer a little bit. Maybe on 1 week or maybe even 2 weeks, you can say, okay, today I'm just going to work on pedal technique, or I'm going to come back and just work on rudiments, or work on drum soloing, because we want to try to strengthen everything that we have. Every tool that we have on the drum set should be equally leveled. So enjoy the dedicated practice schedule. I'd like to talk about motivation for practice. Now, as human beings, I find that we need motivation for almost everything in life, especially practicing the drums. Now, practicing definitely should not be a chore, and you should not have to force yourself to want to go and practice. So I've got a few tips to share with you on what may help you to get motivated to practice the drums. The first one is listening to music. Listen to your favorite bands. Maybe check out some new bands on CDs. Anything like that. Listen to bands where there's drum solos or very cool drummers. This will definitely start motivating you to practice. Another way to stay motivated is to see results. Now, a lot of you might go, well, how do I see results in myself? Because I seem to never be getting better. I see lots of drummers saying that. Well, a lot of time we don't see ourselves getting better, but other people do. So my tip is to suggest that you videotape yourself. Go into the practice room and play. And then practice something that maybe you don't quite have down yet, and just keep the video camera rolling, okay? Then go watch it, because I'm sure you're going to want to go and run and watch it. Don't erase it, and put it aside for like maybe a month. Then what you do is you videotape yourself again. Maybe doing the same similar thing. Maybe keep in mind what you had played on that video. Sit there and do that. Go back and watch the new one, the one you just videotaped, and immediately after that, watch the one that you videotaped a month prior. You will be amazed at the difference. I do this all the time. I always want to check out to see, are things getting faster, more fluid, more musical? Whenever I see myself on video, I want to make sure that I'm not crunched over, I'm not, playing incorrectly, my technique is bad. This is also a very good motivation because once I can see results in myself, I go, wow, practicing is a very good idea because I'm getting better and better. If I can see the changes in my playing, so can the people who come to see me play. Another way to motivate yourself is to go see a live concert. There's nothing cooler than having a pair of tickets in your hand to one of your favorite bands. You look forward to that day. You can't wait to see your favorite band, maybe your favorite drummer. Now, you also might go check out a local band in a small club, maybe a drummer that you've heard about, that you've heard, this guy's got his act together and he's really playing great. Go check him out. Maybe you can steal some of his ideas. One thing that I like to do is I'll go to a small jazz club. Maybe there's only like 40 seats in the place. And I try to sit as close to the band as possible. I'm almost like 10 feet away from the drummer. I can watch every single thing that he does, take some of his ideas, learn something from him. It's definitely a motivational factor whenever you see live music. Another way to motivate yourself is to hang out with inspiring musicians and drummers. Now, they don't have to be famous. They might just be local guys that you know, some friends that are really into it. I wouldn't suggest that, hang out with the guys that own a guitar and they just complain all the time because they can't get gigs or, they're not getting better. Find the guys that you're enjoying spending time with. For me, I find all the time that there's some great musicians that I play with. A lot of the musicians that I even play with here on a lot of the play-alongs, they're fun just to hang out with. We talk about music. We talk about musical situations, music history, all kinds of very cool things. Not only does this make me want to learn more about music, but it definitely want to make me practice more to become a better musician. One of my favorite ways to stay motivated is to jam with other drummers. Now, if you haven't done this before, I guarantee you're going to want to try this. Now, it works best if you're in a room with 2 drum sets. It's always the most incredible situation when you can sit down with another drummer and just start playing. No other instruments, no bass, no guitar, nothing, just 2 drummers. You sit down and you start jamming. You don't know what's going to come up. You might look over and go, whoa, that was pretty cool, and maybe say, hey man, show me that lick you just played, that was pretty cool. Or vice versa, maybe you play something and the other guy, who maybe you think is better than you, will say, oh, that was really cool. Now when you hear that, you go, yeah, cool, he liked something that I played, so I'm sure glad that I practiced that. So jamming with other drummers is definitely a fun way to get motivated. Another way to get motivated is to watch drum DVDs, such as this one. Now, since we have a lot of material covered in this video, you might say, well, today I want to go look at maybe how to develop hand speed. Maybe I want to watch the band tracks. Maybe I want to watch the drum solos. There's so many different things you can do in a drum video. I must own 100 different drum videos. From time to time, I go back and watch my favorite players do their thing. Up close, cameras right on them, microphones right there. What a lesson. Watch some drum DVDs. And one more very important motivational factor is going to drum festivals and drum clinics. Now hopefully in your area there are some sort of festivals, or maybe you get occasional drummers coming in to do workshops and clinics. Don't miss them. Whatever you do, even if you have something else happening that night, I would say take that night off and go and see a professional player do his thing. It's always inspiring. Lately, I've been going to a lot of drum clinics of drummers that I don't even know their names. They're kind of the newbies, the new guys in town. I always want to see what I could learn from them. Going to a big drum festival is incredible because it could be a whole day or sometimes a whole weekend of drums and drumming events. It's always so much fun because you're hanging out with other drummers and everybody's excited and pumped. I find that whether I'm doing a clinic at a workshop or at a festival or just attending one, as soon as I'm finished, I have so many new ideas from other drummers and seeing other guys play that I just want to go home and practice. So check out as many workshops and clinics and drum festivals as possible. So you can see there's a lot of ways to stay motivated on this instrument. It should not be a chore. This is not a job. This is our fun hobby that maybe will turn into your job someday. Hopefully it will. But the main thing, on this instrument, it's got to be fun. With any instrument, it's got to be fun. But especially the drums. We get to hit things and people like that. How cool is that? So stay motivated and always have fun.